Is that a mister in your pocket? Or, oh, never mind. All this and more coming up on This Week in Retro.
High-resolution color graphics.
This land of high technology.
The revolution in technology that made the information age possible.
Those kids are not afraid of computers.
Give us a hand, mister. A proper Mr. Handheld is coming.
Run almost every operating system.
From 2D to 3D and back, we take a deeper look at the 3D Atic Atac and the isometric Wolf 3D.
And a sad day in printed circuit board CAD, along with an IBM PC emulation breakthrough coming up on this week's show for the week of Saturday, the 30th of May, 2026.
Up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.
How's the heart, Dave?
Yeah, the heart is. That was strange. Last week I wasn't here because of my car problems, not because of heart problems. My heart is fine as far as I know. That was a bit strange. Someone misheard Jason's pronunciation of car.
Well, the interesting thing was that the thing that followed it was me saying, he's having car trouble, which is appropriate for a racing-based podcast. But if you heard heart, the word racing, that still could be relevant. Like, oh, he's got a racing heart. So apologies to any discomfort caused. We just, tried to explain at the end of the show that Dave was taking a very, very, very rare break indeed. How's the wife, Chris?
I did have a stab at you owning a Jag, though, in that context. But anyway, I guess Jaguar owners could have heart problems. The wife's fine. So, look, a lot of people had the same hobbies as we did back in the day, and roller skating may have been one of those for quite a few listeners. So, a bit of nostalgic and continuing to celebrate our 30 years of blissful marriage, I took Nikki to the local roller disco, which is a lovely local place called the Rollerama in the Perth Hills. That used to be a roller disco and then closed down 20 years ago, and then somebody's reopened it again. It's the same thing. So quite a nice thing to do. Nikki still has her original speed skates from the 80s, and they were absolutely fine, whereas my Bauer blades from the 90s unfortunately disintegrated as I was trying to put my feet inside them. Literally, I've said it before, but these brittle plastics, it's not just a retro computer problem. It's a classic car problem. It's anything made of plastic problem. Plastic is not the forever technology that we thought it might be, and it doesn't last. So, yeah. I
used some of the time I had off last week to do something I've been meaning to do for a while. I have an IBM PS2 Model 3286, the great big desktop thing with a chunky big power switch, and I bought and imported from the USA an Intel Above Board Plus great big massive full size thing. I'll give Duncan some pictures. Expansion card which takes 2 megabytes of RAM on it. 2 megabytes. 72 chips. So I spent last week that I would have been preparing for the show with a RAM tester testing 80 chips that I bought from AliExpress. All 80 worked. Put it in, got it fixed, and it's working. And my PS2 now has 2 megabytes of EMS memory. I was delighted, absolutely delighted. Soon I'll be picking up a CRT for it, and it'll be finished. I am over the moon with it. So thank you for the time off last week, listeners. It went to a good cause.
Well, we can't beat 2 megs of EMS, so we better move on to even more impressive technologies.
Still wouldn't run X-Wing, would it? No.
No, it's a 286. I mean,
yeah, true.
Couldn't run X-Wing anyway.
True.
It will run Ultima 6, though.
Nice.
The Mister project came onto the scene in 2017, and it didn't take long for it to catch attention. I found out about it from a Retro Collective video in 2019, and I ordered one the very same day that I watched it. Back then, the project relied on using a development board, a DE10 Nano, and then placing it onto a stack of other PCBs the same size to create a tentacled monster. It wasn't pretty, but it was amazing. And in fact, it's still basically the same hardware, just cooked up differently onto different form factors. And the PCBs have evolved, and the new generation of Mister from people like Heber, not Heber, the people who share the mill with Neil at the Retro Collective, is on a single board, as is Takeuden's Misters as well. They're neater, they're cleaner, they get a better signal from them, but they're essentially the same hardware. They kind of look like a TV set-top box, they look like a console. And the project has also come on in leaps and bounds. Back in 2019, we were told that maybe we might get X, Y, and Z, and we got the whole alphabet. It now emulates many arcade games, most of the important ones, just about any 8 or 16-bit system you can think of, be it a micro or a console, and much more, even things like the PlayStation. The unique selling point, the USP of Mister, is that it uses FPGA, field programmable gate arrays, to do a kind of lower level of emulation, closer to what the original systems were, the hope being to recreate in this, transforming the silicon to the actual gates that existed in these old systems, or at least as well as they can. And it works. It feels better. It just feels right. But something else that Mister does that isn't really spoken about too much, and it seems to be just kind of serendipity that's ended up this way, is that it's nice and easy to use, at least for what I prefer in terms of a UI. It's not got that whole Pandora's box feeling, you know, those 4 million games in one type things where it's all these confusing menus and the UI doesn't make sense. Mister works, it's easy to navigate, and things work great. Now, the news today, submitted by Jason, thank you, is a retro collective video where Neil has sat down with Richard from Heber, the company behind the Multisystem 2, the Control Dock, the Multisystem Arcade, and many other innovations, are going to do a proper Mister handheld. It'll be the full hardware in a handheld device. Now, Neil had a video talking to Richard about it. It's not the first time Richard's gone there. He'd actually 2 prototypes years and years ago, actually held one, and I can say it was quite beefy because it still had this DE10 nano board inside it. And I think it was clear at the time it shouldn't have been a product, which is why they didn't make it into a product. But I think Richard was doing this for his own entertainment, his own amusement. But now they're going to be able to do it properly. They're going to make something neat. The screen will be driven directly by the Mister, which is quite unusual because normally what would happen is it would be translated to HDMI, and then a board on the screen that was supplied would translate it back into the screen. So they're going to drive it direct from there, which will hopefully reduce the latency down to the point where you don't feel it. And of course, that's one of the big appeals with Mister, that there's no latency on it unless you add latency to it with wireless controllers and flat screens. And I'm sure Richard must have been listening to me because the screen that he's currently looking at is a 1:1 ratio, 720 pixels by 720, which I've advocated for on here several times before, because it's ideal for nothing. Nothing works perfect on it, but nothing is bad on it. Everything only has a small black bar at the side or a small black bar at the top. So you can either stretch it out and it doesn't look stretched, or you can just have the small minimal black bars. It's going to be the first project from Heber for retro that's injected as well, injection molded plastic this time around rather than 3D printing. The 3D prints look amazing, but I think I'm not sure how robust they are, and I think that's why you would want this to be injection molded. If it's something you're going to be chucking in your bag for going to work, or in your pocket, or on the couch and all for the rest of it. So I'm really impressed by this. Chris, what did you think?
Yeah, I like the look of this project, and the fact that they're engaging with the community at the design phase, I think is a really cool thing. You know, making something that everybody's going to, you know, hopefully have some kind of input in to end up with a nice handheld. It's probably not for me, only in the same way as a Steam Deck is not for me. The handhelds from Retro Games Limited are also not for me. I don't even own a Nintendo Switch. You know, handhelds are just not something I do, but it does look like an awesome project. It's interesting that you're really into this 1:1 ratio screen, Dave, because you're right. You're absolutely right in that.
I'm always right in everything.
It's the best compromise. But you know what I hate about 1:1 screens is when you first look at them, they feel like they should be 4:3, and then you realize they're not, and it does my head in. That shape, a simple square when it's on a screen does my head in. It's just me.
Jason, what do you think?
I mean, I hear a lot of things in this video that show that they're still in the noodling stages, you know, including the fact I know, Dave, you latched onto the 1:1 screen because it's your kind of particular case that you advance. But, you know, he also was saying, well, we're looking at a lot of 4:3 screens. So I don't think anything in here is set in stone. And the other, you know, just say it here, like battery life is obviously going to be key. The thing that a generic ARM-based, you know, system on a chip emulation handheld has going for it is that it is very, 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 very power efficient. And it's very power efficient, not because anybody cares about the experience of a handful of people who want to buy retro handhelds, It's because these systems on a chip are what's used by the gazillion-dollar international smartphone industry, which is dedicated to solving the exact problem. Like FPGAs are optimized for you're flying around in space and you've got access to a lot of solar power, with no atmosphere in the way, or you're in a thing with a nuclear reactor or whatever. Like, it is not optimized for this is a thing you walk around with all day. So that's going to be a wait and see real world performance issue.
I mean, this what I'm holding in my hand is a PicoIDE RGB30. It's got a 1:1 screen, 720 squared. And I don't know if you can pick up, there's a little green LED on it, which indicates it's in sleep mode, because all I need to do is press this button and it should resume, and press this button and it goes back to sleep. So I could be, I don't know, traveling somewhere and they say, it's boarding time. Hit the button, get on the plane, and then hit the button again, and I'm pausing and resuming and sleeping it. So things like that, yeah, it's important to get these things right. There'll be constraints that they can't do with these incredibly low power system of chip things. So it'll be interesting to see how they do it. But they need to get it right. The hardware needs to be really good to use. It's not going to be enough of a selling point to say this is FPGA and then say, but don't worry about the mushy controls and the bad screen and all the rest of it. They need to get all those things right. Otherwise, there's no point in this device. And they'll be competing with devices that are $60 or $70 that are already great to use. Once you battle through the terrible operating system they come loaded with, they're great to use. So yeah, but I'm confident they'll get it right because they have got everything right so far. But there's more hardware stuff. There's lots of stuff happening. Last year I said 2025 was the best time to be in retro. Turns out I was right at the time, but I'm now wrong because 2026 is a better year. This year we've got the Vectrex Mini coming, the 1200, the A1200, the AES Plus, and of course there's handheld Mister, but there's more. Magical Mike on the subreddit links to a time extension article which has found a trademark application implying that we might see an Atari 800 XL Mini. Will you have fully explored yours by the time this comes out, Jason?
By the time this episode comes out, no. By the time Atari releases whatever they might do with a revamped 800 XL trademark, possibly. Yeah, and that's a little foreshadowing, but we'll come back to that. Yeah,
and there's always this atmosphere that we're going to get an Amstrad CPC Mini, although that's possibly just because I'm a fan of Amstrad CPCs, and maybe I'm seeing a Mini that isn't there. The PicoCPC project, though, so this is the Amstrad CPC Pico-based expansion that does all you could hope for and more, is back on track. It had gone off track. It had stopped. Development had stopped, but now it's back on track, and it looks as if they've got past a major problem, and it's going to come out, so I'm delighted with that. Polpo, the guy behind the PicoIDE project, which is the 3.5 bay that emulates a CD-ROM with a screen, has just managed to get 2 devices working simultaneously. So what this means is that you could have a CD-ROM emulator and a hard drive emulator from this one device, meaning that you could just chuck out all the IDE stuff in your old DOS PC and put this in. You can actually have 2 hard disks or 2 CDs as well if you want to. He said it was something he hoped to happen. This is something he was talking about when he talked about the project, but it wasn't offered as a feature during the crowdfunding because it wasn't ready. This is fantastic, though. I mean, my Amiga 1200 in the Checkmate case is going to get a PicoIDE, and it's going to do the CD-ROM and the hard disk emulation for me. It's amazing. The PicoGUS, also from Polpo, I gave an update a few weeks ago, so it now does the Gravis Ultrasound, the Sound Blaster 16, the Sound Blaster 2, the AdLib, proper MPU 401 intelligent mode, Tandy 3-voice CMS Game Blaster, a joystick port, and even Panasonic CD-ROM. And I have an exclusive reveal, genuinely exclusive. Nobody's been told about this. You're hearing it here for the first time. A brand new device has been created this week. The TF MVS. So this is the Terrible Fire MVS, which is a flash cart for the Neo Geo MVS system. The prototype is now working. Stephen Leary, my friend, just finished it recently, like days ago. He sent me pictures of it this morning. It's a super difficult project, so it's difficult to do, but it's been done. Well, he's got past the bits that are going to give him trouble. The rest is just a lot of work to get the whole thing done. It's expected to be ready to use by the time the AES Plus is released. Stephen says he will turn it into an AES connector from the MVS. And what you should end up with is a device that you insert an SD card with a single image on, and it will then flash that image to the 6 different ROMs on there. That's why it's difficult to do. And it will work as a cart for a Neo Geo on the original ones or the new ones with the ASIC. Stephen is famous for making a terrible fire range of accelerators for the Amiga, and his goal there was to get the cost down, right down to make it possible for people to have an 030 or an 060 at the lowest price in their Amiga. And he hopes to do the same with this. So he hopes to get the price right down, but it will not at all be cheap. The ROMs are £5 or £6 each, he says, so I don't know what it'll cost. At the moment, he showed me a prototype, which is a mess of wires. Duncan will have the images there, and you can see the baud wires from his prototype. But I'm delighted to be able to tell people it's going to come. Chris, what do you think?
No, that's cool. There's so much stuff you've just listed there. I'm trying to think what I'm most excited about. I think the IDE stuff is really cool because it's got so many applications. And I'm already looking at the sort of retro PCs that I've got now and thinking, oh, that CD drive needs pulling out and replacing, or does it? Because you could do it with this, and it's so much easier to just throw stuff on a USB. And part of the challenge that I always forget about is, how do I get stuff from the PC I'm sitting at now, which has USB ports and blah, 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 onto something like my 386 in the other room, which doesn't even have a CD drive, let alone a USB port. So this would make it a good option to transfer stuff from one system to another. I like it. Everything's really exciting.
I should also say the Pico Mem has had an update as well. That's from Freddie V. It now has SD and USB direct disk access. So a network redirector driver allows full access to the SD and USB for DOS 3.2 and up. So again, that's another major step forward. Jason?
Well, yeah, speaking of, what is 2026 the year of? Did not have 2026 being the year of Neo Geo on my bingo card, so this is interesting. And Dave, do you want to give the 99.9% of the audience a refresh of what the PicoCPC is?
So the PicoCPC is a device that goes into expansion port of an Amstrad CPC, and it will give you flash drive access, disk emulation, hard disk emulation, allow you to add ROMs in. I believe as well it'll allow you to output the video to HDMI, as well as other things. I mean, it's a kind of all-in-one kind of thing. I don't know if it'll have eventually things like the Multiface 2 built in. Think of that as an action replay. Yeah. For me, though, the big thing that doesn't exist for the CPC is a cheap Pico-based flash cart like so many other machines have. So this is the big thing from the PicoCPC. So I'm delighted to hear it's back on the table. But it does so much more. It's incredible. Now, listening to last week's episode, which I very much enjoyed, it's a long time since I've been a listener, not a guest. Sorry, not a host. I'm not a guest. I'm here whether you like it or not. You can't uninvite me. I noted Jason having a go at the British Micro, something I'm sure he will never, ever do again. But he mentioned a 9-foot wide Amstrad. And the good news is, Jason, that Richard has produced a Mr. Handheld that can play Darius. That's the triple screen arcade game. It's ridiculously wide. It's been called the Wide Boy. Of course, it's not a real product.
Is that the thing that I thought was possibly designed by Santa Cruz? Because it literally looks like a skateboard. I've got to be honest. So when that video dropped, right, I actually skipped to the end because I'm not really that into handhelds, like I said. So I thought, is this going to be, something I'm going to enjoy watching? Skip to near the end where Neil is playing in the car park with this skateboard-sized handheld Mister thing. It's the size of an aircraft carrier or larger, maybe a Amstrad CPC 464. And yeah, no, that's not the product they're working on. So it's hilarious, though. Absolutely hilarious.
This week we are sponsored by no one. We've got no sponsor slot this week.
Oh.
Nothing.
Oh. How am I going to feed the cats?
Yeah. You'll have to skip food. No sponsor slot.
I could eat the cats. No.
No sponsor slot. Don't eat the cats. You
Okay.
can go and catch a kangaroo.
Yeah, I could catch a kangaroo. What are you going to eat, Dave? Cat food.
I'll probably survive a week without eating.
Yeah. Jason.
Enough calories packed away. Cheese.
That's true. There's always cheese somewhere down the road here in Wisconsin.
Mm.
You could drop us a line at twir@thisweekinretro.com if you have anything to throw our way.
Yeah, we'll shill anything. Shill anything.
Going to drink the rest.
That's not true. Dave's very picky. Chris too.
Yeah.
I'll show
we will
it.
not show anything. It needs to be something that, it needs to be something decent that our audience will not be disgusted at.
So thank you for indulging us in the sponsor slot on This Week in Retro. So there's a common joke about the life cycle of gathering up a lot of a specific thing. First, you start out as an enthusiast. You are interested in a thing. You like to have that thing, and you realize that having even more of that thing feels even better. Then that turns one into a collector. That is, one reaches a point where it's not enough to just keep randomly amassing different examples of a thing. Wouldn't it be better if you attempted to have at least one example of every type of that thing? And then one's collection grows and grows, and where does one go from there? Why, one transforms from collector to curator. That's right. That collection hasn't just been in service of one person's pursuit. You've created a museum. No frivolous collectors here, just serious museum curators. There's a fellow named Andrew Workington, and he runs the Andrew's OS Lab YouTube channel and blog, and he has been an operating system enthusiast since 2003, when he first switched from Windows to Linux. There was a note last week's episode. I often say Linux. It's a long story, but I'll try to remember Linux. Switched from Windows to Linux, and he started thinking really deeply about both architecture and history of operating systems. And as he gathered up, obscure instances of early Unix versions, other curiosities, he started building his own scripts to automate his growing collection. And over the past several years, he's realized that he's amassed a vast store of emulators, operating system images that could be worth sharing with others. So TLDR in this story is there's a guy out there who's like EXO, but instead of making like a massive front-end launch collection of games from a particular genre or a particular year or whatever, he's created a massive front-end launcher for almost every conceivable operating system, which can be run in an emulator or some virtualization environment on a modern computer. And this goes back to like some extremely primitive stuff from just a few years after the end of World War II to dozens of flavors of Unix, other very serious workstation operating systems, to embedded systems, PDAs, tons and tons of other examples. This project is called the Virtual OS Museum. It amalgamates nearly 600 different operating systems in close to 2,000 different virtual environments to run those operating systems. I mean, this is enormous and daunting and amazing all at the same time. Thank you to GUIGUS or GUIGUS, whatever you prefer, for posting it to our subreddit. So Andrew's journey got me thinking about my own, journey of discovery with emulators and the ability to run alternative operating systems, run a thing on the thing you're already using, which for me was the early 1990s on my first Amiga 500. I remember a fairly terrible and slow PC emulation, which ran entirely in software, as well as the early version of the pioneering Amax Macintosh emulator. And because of the Mac's high resolution but low color depth screen, you'd get weird results on the Amiga, like, your Mac screen would scroll vertically, but you could do stuff. And like Andrew, I was really hooked on this concept, and it was writing about emulators on the Amiga that got me started writing for Amiga Report, which ultimately, charted the course for the next, 30 plus years of my professional writing career. When did you guys first become aware of emulators, and was there a thing that kind of made you commit to using them as more than a novelty, even if it was something that had weird drawbacks like Amax did?
I've always thought it's possible that I have seen an emulator on a cover disc for ST format or the likes and just not paid much attention to it. I don't remember, but I think one day if I ever do go back through the cover disc, I might find something. But the first emulator that I remember is when I was playing a MUD online text adventure type thing in the late 90s, and someone was telling me about something called MGE, which is Multi-Gauntlet Emulator.
Yes.
Yeah. So MGE, I love Gauntlet in the arcade. The sound of it. I loved it in the arcade. And MGE, they told me about it, and I was blown away. I could literally play Gauntlet on my computer. Properly, arcade, get the sound, all the rest of it. Play both Gauntlet 1 and Gauntlet 2. And that quickly turned into MAME, and I got into all those things there. And that wasn't a novelty. MAME was very capable of playing arcade games. I'm sure the accuracy wasn't there back then, but it didn't matter. It was absolutely, absolutely phenomenal. Be able to play 1943 properly on my computer and rage quit it. and frustration at my lack of ability. All those things. Yeah, absolutely amazing. At the end of the 90s, I've never not been into emulation since. Amstrad, CPC, Atari, ST, all the rest of it. Never not been into emulation. But of course, I got heavily into it in about kind of 2018. Chris?
You're talking about rage quitting, Dave, has reminded me of a mod I want to do to my main cab, genuinely, is put a kick panel in, which is a power down button. Because sometimes I just want to kick the cabinet because I'm so frustrated with the game, and then it will just turn off. And I think that'd be a great way to exit the game if I'm really frustrated. Just kick it.
I've got an idea for it. Make it a button and make it 50% of the time it comes up and says, "No, Chris, you'll finish this."
Yeah,
and half the time it turns it off.
Could do that. But in terms of emulation, to be honest, again, like Dave, I probably was aware of them back in the day, but never really had a use or no interest, because at that time, I'm just constantly upgrading for the next better thing, not wanting to play the games of the past. But 2018 into 2019, that's when I bought the A500 Batman pack off eBay, but that was sent to my parents' house in the UK, and I had a year to wait. And that's when one of my schoolmate, Lee, he put me onto Win UAE. And so that's where it really started for me. And he told me where I could get some ADFs and stuff like that. And then on YouTube, I saw Dan Wood talking about Amiga Forever. And I got a copy of that and never really looked back. I mean, yes, it's essentially running the same thing under the hood. But obviously you've got the ROMs, and it's just a nice, easy interface. And I don't like tinkering. I just want to play.
Amiga Forever is fantastic. Amiga Forever is absolutely fantastic. It doesn't cost much.
Nah.
It's all there. It's all legal. It's all nice and easy to use. It's a fantastic package. I think there's Commodore Forever now for the Commodore 64. Is it C64?
That comes part of the package. Yeah, C64 Forever. And you get Amiga Explorer, so you can transfer files from your modern PC onto your Amiga if you've got them linked up, and all sorts of fancy cool things. The only time I question the emulation, though, is it's always in terms of speed. Is it too fast? Is it too slow? And Alien Breed 3D 2, for example, really stands out because it's very playable on an emulated A1200 with an 030 accelerator. But I now know with the actual hardware in that same configuration, it's not playable at all, in full screen I'm talking about. So, yeah, there are discrepancies, but they're not ones I care enough about. It's good enough to get the job done. Yeah.
Are you maybe using CyberGraphics, which your 1200 doesn't have? Look at me talking like I still remember how Amiga stuff works.
I don't know.
So you don't know either. So
I thought I ticked off all the extra bits, but whatever. Okay. What I also like as well, though, because that Amiga Forever comes with like this OS X, they call it. So it's just like an imaginary Amiga. But you can, I use that to convert graphics from modern graphics formats, test them in the Amiga environment, and then dump them in an area on my hard drive, right? That my actual A1200 cassette, and then I can copy them across, and sure enough, they work on the actual Amiga as well. So it's sort of a good middleware solution to test things before you actually transfer them across. Really nice.
So this virtual OS museum, it is distributed as a virtual machine that runs a very basic version of Debian. And there's a launcher that I will describe as crunchy. It's very coder user experience, I will say. I think the different ways to search and categorize in it will become clearer with time and repetition. But in general, know that going in, you can browse things like by architecture, by creator company, by machine type, a few other categories. And you can download the Virtual OS Museum in two formats. And I will get the easy joke out of the way now by prefacing this with, in this economy? Because the full version is a 174 gigabyte archive. It's about 121 gigs zipped on your torrent. This includes everything that Andrew has aggregated. It's all the operating systems, the emulators to run them with boot ROMs already configured. In some cases, there are some basic instructions so that you can get logged into the environment properly, or know like, okay, you have to insert this disk image at this point, so forth. Now, look, I am not a high-performance gamer. I'm no Dave. I don't have a massive modern rig over here. I do have some external storage. I do have a NAS. But when we routinely do projects on the show which require me to give up 100 gigs over a weekend, just to talk about a story, it's hard sometimes to have to give up all of that space. And did we mention it's expensive these days? So I went with the light version, which occupies a mere 21 gigs of disk space. And the idea behind light is it's all the stuff you need just for the launcher environment, but it goes down to Andrew's servers to pull down the emulators and the disk images that you need to run a specific environment when you ask for it. And this was where I ran into a little bit of trouble. This is a newly released project, but at least on the two Macs that I was trying at home, the pre-configured virtual machine did not correctly make use of the shared network. So downloads were failing for reasons that I didn't completely understand. And it wasn't the kind of error message that said, hey, you dummy, I have no network connection. It made it look like, maybe there were some overloaded servers or something like that. I did figure out that there was a simple settings change to use the virtual LAN that fixed the issue, but I did lose a lot of time over the weekend thinking it might have been some other reason. Now, again, as you may expect, these huge downloads are a lot easier to manage over torrent than just one big download session. But because he uses a standard Linux package manager to install the emulators and images, those installs depend on his server being available and not overwhelmed, which again, I thought might have been the case because we were so early in this project. I sent over the link to all of the images and environments that are included. Was there anything there that grabbed your attention as like, oh, I've always wanted a chance to play with this, but had no idea how to set it up?
I wonder if I could end up playing PDP-10 and associated things of that era games, things like I'm not going to say Ultima again, precursors to that. I did. I mean, I've just said it. I mean,
you totally just
guilty.
said it, yeah.
Guilty. The precursors to those and things like Zork before it was Zork. Those kind of things appeal to me. Yeah, so that's where I would go. I haven't had time.
Chris, anything jump out?
Just scrolling through now, I noticed there's a real Spectrum down there. There's nothing Amiga, is there? No.
Yeah, Aros is in there, in fact.
Oh, Aros. Okay, I had to play with Aros again when I first got into all of this, but I couldn't get my CD-ROM working, so I was frustrated with it.
I would maybe this isn't the way to play your Amiga or your Spectrum. Maybe there's more to it than this.
No, I know. I'm just scrolling through, but yeah, there's not much jumping out for me that I'm thinking, oh yeah, I've always wanted to have a dabble with that. So, in all honesty, no. There you go.
So I'm not just going to read out hundreds of disk images, but there are some standouts on this list. He supports the earliest mainframes, the Manchester Baby test demo programs, Mark I Scheme, later mainframes in many computers like CTSS, MVS, VM370, TOPS 10 and TOPS 20, ITS, Multics. There are workstations and Unix variants, including SunOS, IRIX, OSF1, AUX, NextStep, Plan 9, various BSDs, of course, lots of Linux distributions across the decades. And yeah, almost anything that was ever sold, to the retail consumer is also included. And that goes from things like the Sharp MZ to the Commodore 64. And I was particularly intrigued by the inclusion of a mobile section. So there's emulation environments for Palm OS, Epic/Symbian, Windows CE, the Newton, very early Android and iOS versions. Now, I really want to drive home just how massive and amazingly massive this project is. And Workington says that this work has been going on for a full 22 years and counting, and looking at it, like, I believe it. Is this a comfortable way to run a lot of these systems? I mean, he has done the work of configuring the emulator for you, or in cases, like I said, where it can't be set to auto boot properly, like the Apple Lisa emulator, he tells you how to get started. And in other cases, like mainframes and so forth, I mean, either there is simply no hardware existing in the world anywhere for you to go play with, and if there is, it is not in your house. It is a way to experience a thing that in some cases you simply, for no amount of love nor money, you could have. Now, all that said, to make this work consistently on basically whatever computer you throw at it, like I said, Workington put everything in this Debian virtual machine. Windows, Macs, and Linux hosts are all officially supported, but really anything that can boot this x86-64 Debian image in whatever computer you've got can be made to work. So on your home system, like especially mine is a Mac Mini that runs on ARM. So that environment is emulating an x86-64 CPU, and then in many cases you're going to be emulating another CPU below that, a SPARC, a 68000, possibly some other old 16 or 32-bit ARM chip underneath that. So speed is often lacking. And virtual machines are not generally where you go for graphics performance powerhouse. So yeah, to the idea of like, is this going to be a comfortable way to run Amiga games? The answer is almost certainly no. Even things like Spectrum games, probably not. But that's not what it's for. This experience fits the notion of it being a museum. You don't necessarily expect a high performance, perfect experience, but you do get to go see a fantastic 15-foot marble statue. And being able to go to the museum saves you the trouble of figuring out how to get that 15-foot marble statue into your house, let alone maintain it properly against damage, dust, and decay, and all the other things that go along with having a 15-foot marble statue. To do the research for this story, I tinkered briefly with the Apple Lisa emulator. I got absolutely nowhere looking at a 1951 Ferranti mainframe emulator. played around just a tiny, tiny bit with Sun Solaris, bounced around in the mid-2000s OS project Simobi, which I'd never even heard of. I'm definitely looking at exploring some of the other oddball entries in the Apple tree, with no pun intended, and finding some more of those early commercial Unix variants. Now, the thing is, like, there's a significant difficulty curve to exploring a lot of these. A lot of these early operating systems are very tricky to use, and you are not getting the big printed manuals with them. It is sometimes challenging to get off of the boot prompt, but that is no fault of this project.
So I know who this is for. Aaron, that sometimes comes on here, usually comes on at Christmas time on the show, runs a podcast. Lovely class, that. Runs a podcast with his brother, the Brent, called ARG Presents, and they look at all sorts of systems you've never heard of, and they go through all sorts of problems trying to get them to emulate. So this will be ideal for them to get them to play all sorts of things that just you wouldn't, not Commodore 64, not the Amstrad, far from the beaten track. So yeah, that'll be ideal for them. Now, I don't really want to set up a computer just to use the OS. I mean, I could tell you it's just about the games for me, but that's patently not true. I mentioned at the start of the show that I spent a lot of time on PS2 getting the massive memory card working. Well, what did I do afterwards? I spent hours tinkering in DOS with memory. Not because I needed to, because it actually had plenty of conventional memory, but I wanted to have it just right. So I now ended up with an XMS RAM disk, a colored command prompt, an EMS disk cache that shrinks when needed, DOS key, ANSI, mouse driver, a packet driver, all the sound stuff properly initialized and working. And after that, I had 618 kilobytes of conventional memory left. So that was absolutely perfect on a 286. So it turns out that I do like tinkering in the OS. And going back to what I mentioned about Atari ST magazines and PC magazines, the cover disc, when you got to play with all those various different bits of software you never actually use, I do like tinkering. So this seems to be a project that I might do because it's easy enough to get into and it doesn't mean a big commitment like building all these things and it's just ready to go. So I like that. And to link it back to the Mr. thing, I heard about Richard from Heber was on another show, Pixel Cherry Ninja, and he was talking about the work that goes into these FPGA cores and the project, these cores, the EXO project, in fact, the open source Pico project, they're all labours of love. I don't think anyone could possibly make a living from doing these. So they're doing it for the good of humanity's culture. These are people's gifts to humanity, if you like. And it might sound a bit flowery me saying that, but it's true. I mean, people doing this, it's an immense gift to the culture. So thank you very much for doing this.
I'm just thinking, Dave, as you were wrapping up there, it just shows what we had to put up with back in the day when you said you got 618 kilobytes of conventional memory free. Yes, I was genuinely 618. I was genuinely impressed with that number. And people into modern computers would be like, "What are you talking about? 618 kilobytes." Whereas we're like, "Oh, that's a good number. Oh yeah, well done, you."
Anything now, yeah.
Oh, far out. No, this is a cool concept, and from my point of view, being somebody who doesn't like to be having to tinker around with setting things up, I've never ever set up a virtual machine in my life, and I was in IT, right? Never needed to, never wanted to. So it's just a good way of having everything set up for you. Somebody else has done all the hard work, and if you want to, dip in and have a tinker with these old OSs, what a great way to do it. Yeah, it's cool.
So things that are not in the project include most pure game systems or arcade machines, certain types of ill-behaved emulators, and commercial operating systems that have been sold over the past 10 years. But despite the robust beginnings, there is still more to come because Andrew says he's not done scraping together operating systems to share in this format. As long as he can make them run on a modern system, they will be added later. To learn more, please head to virtualosmuseum.org and plug in that external drive because you might need it.
So on to housekeeping now. And thank you very much to Jim, long-standing member, upgrading to an annual subscription. Thank you for the ongoing support and your confidence in it. And also like to welcome on board Simon. Thank you to our newest patron, Simon. There's a new patron video out now. Really enjoyed doing it. I hope it came out nice in the edit, Chris.
Yeah. And it's thanks to the patrons that we don't have to eat our cats. So that's good too.
Yeah. This is our desert island or flying
bunker exile.
space,
Yeah,
bunker exile systems that we would have. Top 5. It turned out quite well. If you'd like to see that, go to patreon.com/thisweekinretro. News and briefs. And thanks to Bajako, we learned that Autodesk has ended the sale and support for Eagle, PCB design product first launched in the late 1980s. They're cutting it off. You won't be able to use it unless you've got a cracked version. You won't be able to use it at all. They're just killing it off, which is a real shame because lots and lots of people got used to it. And you know what it's like when you're used to a piece of software, you don't want to learn a new one. If it works for you, it works.
I look forward to the movement Stop Killing 38-year-old CAD systems. I'm going to go to the EU Parliament and everything. All right. 386 microcode has been fully reverse engineered, and of course, it runs Doom. Thanks to Route 42 for letting us know. A group of demo scene folks have opened the door to 100% cycle-accurate emulation of the Intel 386 chip. And this is something that our colleague Jim Leonard talks about quite a bit, that our idea of IBM PC emulation, he is very quick to remind us, is almost never real, true, cycle-accurate IBM PC emulation. And things like these detailed 386 breakdowns are an important step along the lines to building better ones.
So now you can run Doom poorly again. I know, I had one. Right. A lovely memory has been shared by Evil Edwin. His mum has sent him the receipt from his Amiga 500 purchase, the cartoon pack, in 1991 from Great Yarmouth. That's really cool.
And someone has spotted an Amiga question on the quiz show, The Chase. The question was, who used ProPaint to create an image of Debbie Harry for the 1985 launch of the Amiga 1000? I'll pause here for just a couple of seconds just to give you a chance to work out what the answer would be. Of course, the answer given was Andy Warhol. Did he really do it? Or was it all marketing?
Oh, are you a Warhol Debbie Harry portrait truther?
I don't know.
Somehow I missed this. Wow.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't know if I'm out of it. It seems to me it seems like a publicity type thing. I don't know.
Have you not seen the thing? Have you not seen
Jason,
the
okay.
Jason,
we have opened up a new area of discourse.
I will believe whatever Jason tells me now.
I wasn't there. 8-year-old Jason was not at the launch, so I can't attest to it. It just never occurred to me that this was a conspiracy theory that was out there, that Andy Warhol did not like. Well, all right, let us know in the comments.
Thing is, all he did was get a scan of a photo of her or a script or a video grab, and then badly used the fill tool. That's all I saw happening.
Oh no!
Warhol Harry truthing.
That's all I saw.
You thought there was nothing new under the sun on This Week in Retro, but here we go.
It literally flood-killed the whole screen.
It's just the end. This is my last show, folks. It's been great while it lasted. This is my last show.
Meanwhile, there's a new Atari project to make a clone of an Atari, specifically an Atari ST, and it is based on the Motorola 68060 chip. This project is called the Raven, and for those who know Falcon hardware, this motherboard looks a little more modern, but it is all in Raven Black.
Snake on a GPU. Bits and Bolts has been modifying the S3 BIOS, starting off with fixing a brightness issue on Black, and then decided to stick a game of Snake in the BIOS.
So you can play a game on your graphics card like you always could, but you can play a game with your graphics card playing the game for you rather than the computer playing it through the graphics card.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. Pointless, but cool.
Immediately as the power comes on. That's a cool concept. And speaking of cool concepts that are maybe impractical, G7VFY linked us to an interesting looking Apple II clone laptop. The details of this are partially in Chinese, but this thing looks straight out of 1993. It has both a real 6502 and a Z80 chip on board for CPM support. It has real Apple II external supports for things like real-world floppy and printer hookups. It may be new, but there's also some 2024 dates on there. I'm looking forward to hearing a little bit more about this and whether it is actually available. And if you've got comments on that, you have your own stories you'd like to submit, upvote, downvote, expand on our knowledge, please, by visiting reddit.com/r/thisweekinretro.
Two things I love are revisiting the really early games I remember and first-person shooters. And oddly, those things are seldom one in the same. But they are now. And thanks to Bajako6502 for sharing this, as well as it coming up in my feed as well. I have actually been able to play a game that covers both of these things. One of the very earliest games I recall playing on the Spectrum was one I didn't own, but I vividly remember playing it at my schoolmate Daniel's house on his rubber-keyed Spectrum 48K, and I absolutely loved it. And I really wanted a Spectrum so that I could play the same game in my own home. That game is Atic Atac by Ultima Play the Game, a game I'm still yet to complete as I get hopelessly lost, but I still love it regardless. Have you actually played the original, guys, or even beaten it, Dave?
I just want to point out you said Ultima Play the Game there, not Ultimate Play the Game. I'm proud of you.
Oh, sorry, Ultimate Play the Game. Did it come out sounding like Ultima? I meant Ultimate
Play the Game.
Ultimate
Well, I mean Play the Game Ultima.
No, not
Jason.
Play the Game Ultima.
My American forefathers fought the Redcoats to keep people like me from having to play games that look like Atic Atac on computers like the ZX Spectrum. So no.
He's done it again, Dave.
I'm proud of Jason. I'm proud of you, Jason, for that bit of trolling. I like a bit of that.
I'm being very serious.
As for these games, the one similar one that I played lots of was Starquake, which is the same screen-by-screen layout, loads of them with a fixed number of respawning enemies on the screen, but a bit more going on to it. There's a bit more exploration. There was codes to use for the teleporters, use specific objects to pick up, and the CPC version had fantastic title music and in-game music. I absolutely loved the game. I never got quite close to completing because it was difficult, but I also don't think it's the same arcadey difficult as Atic Atac is. There's a bit more to it. But in terms of collecting the right items and so on, that was where the difficulty was, as well as the arcadey stuff. I love Starquake. I like these games, but I get what Jason's saying. I mean, this was a real arcade experience on your Spectrum that wasn't a poor man's port of an arcade game. This was something made on the Spectrum from the ground up. So I think you can appreciate him for that, even if you don't like playing them, Jason.
It is crazy fast as well. Anyway, if you've not played it, it's a top-down game in which the screen refreshes every time you enter a new room through arches, doors, locked doors, or by traversing stairs or even falling down deep holes in the middle of the room. Ghosts and witches of all sorts of things, they spawn in to attack you, and you have to collect keys and other vital items to get through the game, like Dave mentioned. And even though it's top-down, the sprites are kind of face-on, which isn't right. And the walls are sort of a pseudo 3D, as if you're looking down into a box from directly above. That's the best way I can describe it. And I think that's why developer Stephen Carlisle Smith was able to quite easily adapt this game into a first-person shooter available now for Windows, Linux, and Mac, whilst almost perfectly maintaining the wonderful aesthetics of the Spectrum original. I know Jason will be very excited about that. Stephen, I've actually come across Stephen's work before because he created a 3D version of Saboteur a few years back, and I played that. Keeping in mind, Saboteur was a side-on 2D platformer, so it doesn't really lend itself to being easily converted into 3D first person. However, with that project, Stephen was given help by the game's original creator, Clive Townsend, who assisted with original map data and other elements to help put the player inside the game. This version of Atic Atac, though, it looks even better. What I mean by that is it looks even closer to the original game, even though it's now in 3D. And I actually reached out to Stephen, and he let me know that he didn't have any special access to anything for making Atic Atac 3D and no help from the original devs. The graphics were basically extracted from screenshots, and everything else was created manually using maps and descriptions from various websites. And he said it didn't take him long to recreate the game map. To save time, he randomized the wall decorations rather than configure them accurately as to how they were in the original game. But he said the biggest challenge was that there's essentially rooms that occupy the same space in the original, with the point of entry determining which room is displayed, if I've understood what he said correctly. And so that was a bit of a tricky thing to get around when you're doing it in proper 3D. And he also states that he actually began this project 3 years ago, but the actual dev time itself hasn't taken that long. It's just, other things on the go. I've played it because something like this I had to jump on and give it a go. I absolutely love it. Being inside Atic Atac and being able to see into the next room from a first-person view and walk around it's just an absolute joy. And I can see myself finishing this version before I go back to the original and complete that. So, guys, what do you make of this? And what other early games have you ever wanted to jump inside of? Or beyond that, even what if there was a VR version for the Quest or something like that? Is that something you play, Jason?
I have to ask about this pronunciation thing, because you keep saying Atic, and Dave and I are saying Atic. And the game involves falling through a trap door, but then it does say the castle consists of 5 floors, including the attic. And the cavern.
It's both. It's a play in words. So it's supposed to be Atic Atac as well as Atic Atac.
Okay.
I think we had this discussion a couple of years ago when we discussed the game again back then. I'm pretty sure.
There are a lot of
people are reminded of this vitally important game.
As far as like being put into an immersive VR type experience of a game, I'm really just not that interested in VR. I remember, it being intriguing, in the age ago times, but nothing about the VR revival has really spoken to me or convinced me that it's like going to be better rather than worse for my relationship with technology. But these types of projects generally, like, yes, it is very cool to take something out of the 2D. It's sort of 2D, it's sort of 3D, and making it the FPS. Like I did get a good chuckle in a nice way out of seeing this adaptation. And I think taking something that kind of inherently has a bit of wonky perspective and putting it into a different mold, like that is a really fun thing. There's often challenges when things like platformers become 3D, because part of the charm and the boundaries are can be the two-dimensionality. So taking this out is pretty cool. So always game to see these types of adaptations.
It's kind of like a bit of the opposite of what happened in the 90s when everything suddenly had to become 3D because you had to be 3D. Whereas this has become 3D and it works. It works really well. It's amazing how well it works. I wouldn't have thought this would have come out as well as it did. It reminds me a little bit of Nightmare, which Rose Tinted Specs was just starting covering again. It's the kids' TV show where you wear the helmet and friends would guide them badly through a dungeon. But this looks really good. In fact, this might be a better way of playing Atic Atac than the actual original. But Chris, this is now an FPS, so would you say that this sits maybe between Doom and the PC and any of the Amiga Doom attempts in terms of quality?
I'm not being serious. I can mute your microphone. Anyway, I'm not even going to respond to that. All the links relevant to Stephen's first-person take on Atic Atac will be in the show notes, of course, as will the links to the work of YouTuber and streamer and developer DOS Game RT. He's the guy behind the isometric Wolf 3D game called IsoWolf, WULF. This is now a fully downloadable version and features all the episodes and enemies of the original Wolfenstein 3D, but in isometric. He details everything in his blog, and he's taken in feedback along the way, and the results are quite awesome. He's even implemented, and I forgot to turn this on when I tried it, but he's implemented a line of sight mode. So when you toggle that on, you can't see anything that would be obstructed by a wall or a door or anything, and that includes extra rooms, walls, enemies, pickups, everything. So that's cool. I have played this, and in short, I can say it's an interesting experience. You need the original Wolf 3D files for legal reasons, of course. There's an option within the launcher to download the shareware version, but for me, all the mirrors failed for that. So what I did was I just bought the full version of Wolf 3D on GOG for $7 Australian, installed that, dumped the files from IsoWolf in the same folder, and that seemed to work for me. It's very interesting to be taken out of first person and into isometric to play what was probably the first person shooter I think I ever played. It's fun. It's worth your time to give it a go if you've got the files for Wolf 3D. And let's appreciate that on one hand, I'm celebrating playing a top-down adventure game in 3D first person, which changes it to being really a shooter rather than an adventure game. And at the same time, being taken out of a first-person shooter into an isometric game, which kind of turns that from being a shooter into being an adventure, or feeling like an adventure game. What do you guys make of this?
I mean, it's interesting to take this long circuitous route to reinvent the early 90s Castle Wolfenstein and beyond Castle Wolfenstein. And it did kind of say like, oh, maybe I'd rather see a new iteration on those gameplay concepts rather than more kind of, run and gun, Wolf 3D, which, kind of when they gave that to us, we're like, this is the thing we've been craving, but we've had a lot of it since then. Now, honestly, it probably has been done. I know that there have been, isometric sneakers that have come out in recent years, but I can't think of any offhand. So interesting to get more new classic Castle Wolfenstein.
I thought this was quite unique feeling, and I might be an idiot here. It might be games I've just not seen, but I thought it's Gauntlet but isometric on the one hand, and that should be nothing remarkable. But it's weird. It looks like Atic Atac. I won't say the same pronunciation twice in a row. That it looks as if it's be good to play. I like that there's no bullets. Shooting is instant, which usually isn't the case. And it's kind of, you can see it's come after 3D FPS shooters rather than before, because it doesn't play the same way as the original Castle Wolfenstein on the Apple II, which, if anyone's not aware, that was a kind of a platformy shooter game, not a 3D game at all. And many years later, Wolfenstein 3D came out inspired by it. So yeah, I'm surprised how original it looked, because when someone said I'm going to take Wolfenstein 3D and turn it into a 2D game, I would have said, well, that'll be rubbish. But this looks actually interesting and different. So yeah, quite impressed by it.
It's weird because the reason why I think I'm going to get on better with 3D Atic Atac than the original is because in 3D, in first person, the rooms make more sense to me. Whereas with Wolfenstein 3D, it's the opposite. I'm being taken out, but the isometric view is helping me understand the map better. Does that make any sense? It's weird because, yeah, but that's how I feel playing it. It's a really cool control mode as well, because basically you use WASD to control your player in IsoWolf, and you use the mouse to move your target over whoever you're shooting at. So you've still got that sort of full-on control, even though you're in isometric. Again, all the links to all of these will be in the notes. And with projects like this and the likes of Digital Foundry, who we mentioned a few weeks ago, he's now made a playable DOS port of Gloom Deluxe, and you can play it multiplayer in a browser as well, so you don't even need a 386 or a 486 to install it on. And even my own son, Zach, who he should be ready with the release of his first game soon, which is a retro-styled pixel art card trading resource management game in space. So shout out to Dopey Dragon Games. That's not the sponsors lot, Dave. That's just me supporting my boy. But yeah, I do really wonder what's next. It's time now for our community question of the week, and last week's question was, suspending the laws of physics. You can fold any retro kit into any piece of furniture. What tech and furniture would you combine? So I'm told in good faith we are out of contest mode.
Yeah.
What's the top answer? I've seen the top answer, and I'm going to say the top answer is the top answer. Dave, I think it's one for you to read out.
We could actually stop it after the top answer because it's a brilliant answer. Happy Coding, ZX Hello Alan, says, how about an armchair that turns into a 1980s Star Wars cockpit cabinet with the push of a button? Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
We don't need to go on.
Brilliant idea.
Thank you for joining us this week, everyone.
Yeah, Tech Made Easy UK. I want a Tomy Racing Turbo game retrofitted into my car. All the modern touch-sensitive controls gone. 7-segment LCDs and LED bar graph modules, and a Tomy-esque heads-up display overlaid on the road layout and other cars on the road. Nice one.
Ooh, that'd be nice. Jeff Mendoza says...
ballot box stuffing again.
It says, a folding CRT. Seeing as you're letting me suspend the laws of physics, I'm having a CRT which becomes much lighter when folded. Now I don't have to worry so much about getting a big screen out of the loft. Yeah, I think we'd all welcome that, actually.
Jacko's answer, do you see that one? He says, a couple of hinges, a saw, and bam, any Amstrad CPC could become a sun lounger. Very appropriate for the heat wave that we have in the UK. It is 23 degrees where I am. It's. I said to the guys before we started recording, it's literally Mad Max out there. It's that post-apocalyptic wasteland caused by 23 degrees centigrade.
See, I was a bit confused by Bajako's thing, but now I get it. So he's saying you could fold it down so that it becomes only the size of a sun lounger.
Yeah.
Is that right? Okay, yeah. Okay, it makes sense now. Any other standout ones, guys? There's lots of
Let's
good
see.
answers.
Give the Virtual Boy the 360-degree swivel
I saw
chair
that
it
one.
always deserved from
nice.
Arthos Deli.
A comfy car seat into a Sega rally cab. Yeah, you could get those proper bucket seats things. You could get those for. I bet you someone did do it. I bet that was done. But yeah, loads of good answers. If you'd like to go and answer the questions that we're going to ask you in a moment, or submit articles, then you would go to, where would you go, Chris?
reddit.com/r/this week in retro. And that's also where you can obviously submit stories that we choose to feature on the show. So this week's question is what, Dave?
What retro game would you like to see in 3D, or what modern game would you like to see in retro 2D? In the theme of the Atic Atac, and the Wolfenstein 2D.
Very cool.
So, if Dave is with us next week, it's because he's fine. If Dave isn't with us next week, it is also because he's fine.
It's true.
Right, Dave?
I have no plans to have a heart attack this week.
Okay.
Good.
But your plans are changing, so may or may not be with us with our fine returning guest.
We'll see. We'll see you next week.
Okay.
Thank you very much for joining us this week. We will see you next week. We have a great guest next week. Really looking forward to the guest next week. And I'm waving.
Sure.
I'm waving.
Jason's waving. We're all waving.
Happy 5th Saturday in May.
Yes.
Yeah. We didn't do the introduction start. I'm Dave. At the top of your
No, I
screen.
mentioned both of you guys by name. And I think
you?
maybe you said Jason. We're good.
You're the only one that does it. I don't do it. I forget about it.
Probably said names.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm Jason. That's Chris.
Yeah.
Dave's not here because he's.
I'm Duncan. Bye-bye.
Bye.
This Week in Retro was written and presented by Chris from 005 AGIMA, Jason from the Retro Adventurers, and Dave. It was edited by me, Duncan Styles. The podcast version of the show is available through your favourite podcast app, including Apple Podcast and Spotify. And the video version is available on the This Week in Retro YouTube channel.
Join our community subreddit at r/This Week in Retro to suggest and vote on the stories we cover on the show. Please give us a like and subscribe to help us reach new viewers.
If you enjoy our show and would like to support it, then please check out the link to our Patreon page in the show notes or description. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time for more up-to-date news for out-of-date tech.